Hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. It's a lovely day again today. We've got, even though it's a bit cold outside, I can really smell spring. It's on its way, and it gives you that vigour to get out there, get your spade warmed up and get cracking with the garden. So here's another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, a few questions and thank yous to people that have sent comments in the last few weeks. And the first one, or the two people I'd like to mention is Ken Fuller and Wiltshire Vegetable Garden. And they've sent me some comments trying to help me with the problems that I had with the onions last year, which was the Stuttgart giant onions. If you remember, the leaves were curling over, so I took them out and replaced them. Thank you very much for all of your comments on that. I don't think that it was an insect, because when I sort of pulled them out and I examined it, there was no grubs or anything in there. So I'm really thinking it's some kind of fungus. How the fungus got in there, I'm not quite sure. So you may well be right with the moth, etc., gone in there and sort of sort of put the fungus from from another plant. But the one thing that I will say is my next door neighbour had it on his onions that I gave him as well, which were also Stuttgart giant. I also had I had a load of turbo, which I got from Wilco's. I had 2 rows of Stuttgart giant, and then I had another type of onion. I can't remember, beginning with an A. I'll write it on the bottom of the screen. But they weren't affected at all. The only ones that were affected were the Stuttgart giant. So I'm not sure if the actual sets had it in, and the way that it was sort of dotted up the line, there was no pattern to it. There wasn't like 3 or 4 together. It was one had it, and then there'd be 6 or 7 healthy onions, and then there would be another one that's affected. Then there'd be a few more onions which were okay. So it was quite random, apart from the fact that it was only the 2 rows of Stuttgart giant that were affected. So I'm starting to think it was some kind of fungus, and it was in the Stuttgart giant sets when I bought them, because nothing else was affected by it. And as soon as I pulled them out and replaced them with some turbo onions, which I'd got growing in the greenhouse as spares, I didn't have any further problems. So I'm going to investigate that further. But thank you to Ken and also to Wiltshire Vegetable Gardens for the help of that. I'll keep on searching. When I find what it actually is, I'll let you all know. One question came from Foodie Laura. Thank you, Laura, for your comment. She was asking about when you dig the trench for the beans and you put all your compost in there, does it attract vermin and stuff like that? I've not noticed any vermin down there, to be honest with you, and I've done this a few times. I do the same thing with potatoes. I make a potential trench, and also for the peas as well, and I've not really noticed it. I'm in the countryside here, so I'm surrounded by thousands of all sorts of rabbits, rats, mice, whatever, they're all over the place. So no doubt something gets in there and has a bit of a nibble, but I've not noticed it attracting it. And when I responded to Laura, I said it's kind of the same thing as having a compost heap, really. So it's just having a compost in a trench. So I don't think it attracts any vermin more than that. The one thing that I have found that attracts vermin is chickens, and not the chickens themselves. The smell of chickens. Obviously, vermin can pick up on that, will attract rats, and I have had a problem a couple of times over the years of keeping chickens. But if you have a rat-proof run like I've got, you're all right. But rats obviously associate the smell of chickens with chicken food, so if they smell a chicken run, they'll try and get in there to get at the food, because obviously they associate the two things together. But the trench for the beans, I haven't really seen it as being a problem, to be honest with you. Nigel from Wolverhampton. Alright, Nigel. He's put a few comments on with regards to the Weather Vane videos that I've been putting up. The one thing I will say is, don't panic. I am most certain, this Weather Vane I'm making at the moment, I am most certainly over-engineering it. The one that I made last year, this one, which is outside, which you've seen on all the videos, the purple one, that took me probably 2 hours to make from scratch. So, and obviously I'm used to using my hands, so it may take you sort of 3 hours or whatever, or you may even take less. But that took me kind of 2 hours to make, to be honest with you. So this one so far has probably taken about 5 hours. So the bits between the video clips, there isn't that much really. So when I say I'm going to cut this out, then 5 minutes later I'm taking another video showing you what I've done. So don't think there's an hour and a half between each of the clips, whilst I'm doing it. There's nowhere near as much work as it looks, but I'm trying to give you all of the details, so if you want to make one yourself, but don't panic. I'm sure most people, if they apply themselves, they'll be able to make one. So and as I say, if you're not practically minded, they're quite cheap to buy in the shops, to be honest with you. I'm making it because I enjoy making things, so excuse me. Next person I'd like to mention is Nora Hepburn from up in Scotland. Hello, Nora. She makes some lovely videos on the on YouTube with what she's getting on in a garden, and a dog as well. So thank you for all the videos you've been putting up, Nora, and thank you for all of your kind comments. I'll put Nora's link across the bottom, so she's got some really nice videos if you want to have a look at Nora's videos. And I just want to say a big thanks to Sir Cracker, who's over in America. He's put some really nice comments on my channel over the last few weeks, and he seems a really nice guy. So I just want to say hello to Sir Cracker, and thanks for watching the videos. So that's the end of this week's question time. Okay, so just a quick recap where we were last week. What I've done, I've just taken off the bit of pipe that was there, if you remember, and what I've done is I've sort of cleaned that off altogether, so that's the bit that the the sort of the tail, which is the bit that will show the direction, will be fitted. Now, I explained last time the reason why I've fitted one of the cups onto the anemometer is basically so that I can form the tail bit. Now, what I'm going to do, if you can imagine, is what I'm going to do is put a plate in here, which is going to go up and then follow the contours of this and then round. So as these spin round, they're just going to miss it. So if you imagine, it's going to follow the same contours going round like that. So as these spin round, that will also be able to spin backwards and forwards, and obviously these will just miss it. So it looks good when whilst it's up in the air. Now, what I'm going to use for this is basically this. Again, it's a piece of recycled steel. It's just the back off a. Actually a computer, to be honest with you, or a server. And what I'm going to do is, because this is again, this is a piece of I'm not sure if it's galvanised or anodised, but it's basically treated steel, so I know that it's not, it's not going to go rusty when I make it. So what I've done is I've just lined up the you can see these two marks here. This one here, that was a mistake. This one here and this one here. That bit there, if you imagine that face there, is going to attach onto here. So it's just shy of that. So I'm going to have about 1/8 of an inch at the top and 1/8 of an inch at the bottom, sort of, so that the bearings are nice and free. And then it's going to come up and then along. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to cut this. You can see there's a bit of a sort of form on the edge, so I'm going to cut that off with the angle grinder now, all the way along, and then so it clears this top bit here and also the bearing set at the bottom. What I'm going to do is go in slightly and then make a curvature like a quarter circle there, and then come all the way down, because obviously that's going to foul the post. And then at the top bit here I'm going to cut in exactly the same way. I'm going to cut a quarter circle there, and then go all the way up. And then what I'm going to do is then weld this onto there, and then I can sort of weight all up against what's going to be near it, and then I can basically draw the line where I'm going to cut this out and basically form the tail part. So that's what I'll do next. Okay, so now as you can see, what I've done is I've welded down that side. I've cut out the shape that I said I'd cut out, and what I've done is I've welded it to the so now
it'll now sort of rotate freely. Obviously I need to cut some off because it's catching on the thing. But what it's enabled me to do, if you look from here, is draw the contour of the blade out. Obviously what I want to do is cut off this catch bit that was on there. So what I'll do now is cut round this line like that. I've only just sort of quickly sketched it on, but what I'll do is I'll bend up another one of the cups and put it on here to get the perfect line. Obviously I most certainly need to miss that log so I can cut that off. And so this will form the you know, the sort of the tail part, and the top bit there will be discarded. Now because this is only sort of thin plate, as you can see, it's sort of a bit sort of wobbly. So what I'm going to be doing is getting a piece of pipe and cutting it in half, so I end up with sort of half a pipe, and then on both sides I'm going to have a piece of sort of half pipe going down like at that kind of angle to strengthen this and stop it from sort of bending in the wind. Obviously I don't want anything too heavy, because where the wheels balance and we've got the same weight on both sides, so the centre of gravity is still in the middle. This part will most certainly offset the centre of gravity, so what I want to do is keep this as light as possible, but obviously it needs to be strong enough so as the wind whips it round, it doesn't sort of bend and contort. So I'll do that now. Okay, so I've taken the wheel back off and sort of straightened these lines up a bit, so I can now get a ruler in there and sort of put a straight line on there. Then obviously this is the contour of the cup, and what I've done is I've just got another one of the cups, just very quickly held it together with some mould grips, and then obviously that's obviously going to be kind of like that, and obviously I need about an inch all the way around it to clear it, so that's exactly what I've got now. So I've worked out what that is, and just by freehand what I've done is I'm going to cut this down at a curve along the bottom, and I'm going to come back up sort of gently coming back towards this line and then sort of rounding off the curve. So that's the kind of shape it's going to be. I guess if you look at it on its side it's like a Smurf's hat, but that seems to be the kind of shape that it's going to end up being. I think this line here, I've just obviously done it freehand so you can see, but I think that'll probably be slightly more round, so it's going to come in a bit more like that when I cut it out. But so what I'll do now is, now I've welded, obviously I've already welded down that side, just to give it a bit more strength before I sort of start cutting it, I'll weld down, I don't know if you can see that, but I'll weld down that side as well on the other side to make sure there's plenty of strength, and then cut out this, cut along these lines, obviously around this contour, around here, and then round the bottom and up like that. And now you can cut something like this out with either a jigsaw if you've got a metal cutting piece with it, but I'll probably do most of this, if not all of it, with an angle grinder with a very fine blade. But some of these more intricate bits, what I might do is cut that out with a jigsaw. When I was cutting these out here, the straight lines were cut out with the angle grinder, and these sort of circular bits here were cut out with the jigsaw, just so I could get a nice neat sort of curve. But because these curves aren't so anywhere near as tight, and that's the curve going that way, obviously the angle grinder will be on the outside of it, I should be able to get most of this, if not all of it, out with the angle grinder. So I'll do that now. Okay, so there's the tail. I've cut round the shape. As I said, I'd made this curve here a lot more gentle, so that's the actual shape of it. And I won't lie to you, the labels that were on this side have been a complete pain in the bum to get off. I had to peel them off bit by bit, and then I've had to wipe it all over with some white spirits, but I've managed to get it all off. As you can see, it's now nice and clean. So the next step is, obviously this is a little bit sort of wabbly, if you like, waggly. So what I'm going to do is, and also it's to protect this welder down here as well, is I'm going to weld half a piece of pipe, cut it at an angle. It'll become more clear when I show you in a minute how I've done it. From here down to sort of down here, and then, or as far as I can get it, and then exactly the same thing on this side, so that it'll be symmetrical both sides. So I'm sort of going to end up with a sort of half pipe here, getting smaller and smaller and smaller as it goes down, so it sort of fades into it, if you like. And the way I'm going to do that is get a piece of pipe and cut it at an angle it'll become more obvious in a minute when I show you, so I'm basically going to do that now. Okay, so there you have it. I've got a piece of pipe which I've cut at an angle. As you can see, it's getting smaller at that end, bigger at that end, and that's going to fit on like that at that end. And then what I've done, so I know where it's going to, can you see that little ding there? What I've done is just got a centre punch and made a mark there, so it's going to line up with that ding there. So what I'm going to do is, when you weld this in, at the moment, because of the weight of the plate, it'll sag against the weight of it. So what you want to do is make sure you got it on a nice flat surface, ideally metal, so you know it's perfectly flat like that. And then put your rib on like that, and then hold it flat against it, and then you know that that's perfectly flat against there. And then what I'm going to do is weld all the way around there, because that's where you need the strength. This is the weakest point here. I'm going to weld all the way around there, and then as soon as I've done that, I'm going to tack it at that end, so weld around that end there, and then I'm going to weld it again in the middle. Yep, and then turn it round, and I've got an identical mirror image of it. Yep, which is off the side. This is just the centre pipe off another bike frame, to be honest with you. And then what I'll do then is, on the other side, obviously it'll already be flat now because that's holding it flat from the other side. Again, line that up there, and then I've got the same dot. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little dot there where I've pinged it with a centre punch, so that'll go on like that. So it'll weld on like that, and then I know that these are both the same on both sides. Obviously, that side's going to be the same, and if that side's the same, and I know these two are the mirror image of each other, then it'll be identical on both sides. The one bit of advice, obviously, when you're cutting something out like this, unless you've got laser guidance and all that kind of business, what you will get is some slight, you know, it's not exactly square to the metal. So don't worry about that. What you can do is put the ribs that you're going to put on onto a flat surface. Now what I've got here, these are really sort of about 6mm thick metal surfaces. If you haven't got a metal surface, a slab or something like that you know is flat, and then by holding it down and just tapping it with a hammer, what you will do is flatten it. Don't tap it too hard, because what you don't want to do is lose the shape of the pipe, but you can tap these down. Having said that, when you weld it on anyway, so when this one gets welded on, it doesn't matter if you've got a millimetre or two gap anyway, because when you weld it, the weld's going to fill the gap anyway. So as you can see, this one's actually the second one I cut, and it's very slightly warped. So what I'll actually do is actually bend that slightly with my hand, I think, just to get it perfect. That's the worst side. The other side's actually really good. Now the way that I cut these, the first one was largely guessed. So I've got a length of pipe and cut out. Always remember, you can always cut a bit more off. You can't put any more back on. So cut it large to start with, and then grind it down. And then what I did was put one on top, back on the pipe like that, and then so you don't crush the pipe. Put a piece of conduit inside the pipe like that, and then you can put it in the vise. I need the vise slightly more open. You can put it in the vise like that. Yeah, so you're only holding it in the middle, so you're not going to deform the shape of the pipe. And then you can use one as a template for the other. Obviously remembering that this end here is obviously going to be the mirror image of it, so it's at the opposite angle, but all the rest of it is exactly the same, so it's only this bit here. And the way I did this end was basically to put one on top of the other. I'd already cut one, obviously, and shaped it to the you know, the angle that I needed for that. And then by putting one on top of the other like that, what I could see was exactly what the shape was for underneath. So if I just hold them up just hold these up to the camera on that so you can see them a bit better. So they are literally the mirror image of each other. Yeah, so you make that shape by holding them together like that, and then obviously cut the side by putting one on top of the other. Always remember as well as on a piece of pipe, when you put one on top of the other, the one underneath will always look slightly bigger. Yeah, because of the curvature of the pipe. So cut that angle there, and then when you turn it round, move it slightly round so you've got the difference there, and then you can cut that line there. So that's how I made those two pieces. So what I'll do now, I left the paint on just so you could see what they were. I'm going to take all the paint off these with the angle grinder, and then, as I've explained, weld that on there, lining it up with the ding there, etc. And then turn it over and weld the other one on, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's the strengthening bit welded on. As you can see, what I've done is I've sanded all the way down, or ground it with the angle grinder, just to make it nice and smooth, to take the edges off the weld. I've also gone round the edge there, and then exactly the same thing on the other side. Weld it down, and obviously where the ding was there, as I explained, I welded it into there. So that's just doing all that so it'll stay there. So that's the strengthening bar put on. Now this is all, it's all straight now, but I must admit, when I was welding it, even though because if you weld in a sort of sheet metal like this, what you should do is put a spot every sort of 2 inches all the way around, let that go cool so it goes back to its normal shape, and then you go back and stitch between the stitches and do it that way, which is what I did. But unfortunately the plate has very slightly warped. I've bent it straight again now, but and to be honest with you, unless I show you where it was, you'd never guess where the plate are deformed. So it's, you know, for what we're doing, it's more than close enough. But so what I'll do now is paint it. So what I'll do is give it a couple of coats of primer, exactly like I did with the wheel, and then I'll put the top coat on. Okay, so that's with 1 coat of primer on. I'm not going to put 2 coats on because I felt that when I primed this twice, the paint's ended up reasonably thick on there. And really, because there's going to be 2 coats of gloss on here, which you'll see later on, because I'm going to paint a pattern to this, I didn't want to sort of build up the paint too much on here. So I'm now going to, now that's all dried, it's had 24 hours, I'm going to paint the whole thing with white gloss. Okay, we're on to the final part of the Weather Vane. Now, as you can see here, I don't know if you can see because the light's a bit weird, what I've done is, this is a bit of stainless steel plate. This was off the back of a something or other, and what I've done is I've marked out north, south, east and west, and what I will do now is cut out the letters. You can see it like that. Cut out the letters with the angle grinder. What I'll do is I'll cut out the squares first around each letter, and then I'll just cut through to form the letters. Now the S is going to be most certainly difficult, so what I might do on the S is use a method called chain drilling, and what that means is you drill a hole every few centimetres going around, so you get a centre punch the holes where you want, obviously, the drill to go, otherwise the drill will sort of go all over the place. Chain drill it out, and then I'll get the rough shape out, and then I'll file out these holes here. These are going to be the bits that are going to be difficult to cut out. The rest of it I can get out with the angle grinder quite easily. But what I'll do is, because when I cut these holes out it's going to weaken the plate, what I will do is I'll cut all this out first by chain drilling it, and then after I've done that, I will then get the angle grinder and cut all around the edge to form the S shape. So I'll do that now. So just to show you chain drilling, this, with it being stainless steel, it's really hard, but as you can see I've drilled, let's get out of the light, you can see I've drilled a series of holes along there, and all you need to do is bob it in the vise, and you can bend these basically, as you see, look, just bend that backwards and forwards a couple of times, it'll break off, and then I can just, it'll break off, there you go. And then as you can see, all I've got to do now is just file, put that in the vise like that, and then just file that edge off to form the E. So in exactly the same way, as you can see, what I've done with the S is I've chain drilled round the bit that's going to be difficult to get out. Of course, all of these I can get a straight cut in with the angle grinder from the outside. So what I'll do now is cut round the edge, and then I'll be able to take these bits out and then file it all straight. So we've got the E I've just shown you, so I've now filed those bits flat, so that's the E finished. So I've got an E, an M and an N. Oh, hang on, I've cut that one upside down. No, it's alright everybody, don't panic. So I've got an east, a west and a north, which are quite easy to cut out. Now I'll get the S out of this bit. And there you go, there's the S. And basically what I've done is obviously I've broken out the bits that were, there you go, that were stuck in the, that's the bit that was in there. And just by using a round file, I've gone around and got that shape out. I've gone around the edges with just a flat file. And where I've got the sharp corners in the E, the W, the N, etc., I've used what's called a needle file, which is basically just a really small sort of jeweler's file, just to get out the shape. So there we go. So we've got north, south, east, and west now. So those are the 4 letters. And what I'll be doing now is making the framework to weld them so it'll show where's north, south, east and west. Okay, so the next bit's in the top, this is going to make like a sort of spike on the top of the, to top the weather vane off, and from these will come the bits that the north, south, east, west is going to sort of attach to. So the actual basis of it is going to be a piece of conduit pipe which I've cut the end off, and there's going to be a nut welded onto there, which is then going to screw onto the centre hub of the wheel. I've used pipe so that the thread can go inside the pipe, and then these 4 pieces of steel will then be welded kind of like that. So there'll be one there, obviously at 90 degrees all the way around. So that's what I'll do next. Okay, so now what I've done is I've welded the nut on the end, so now that will screw onto the end of there like that. Even though it's not catching at the minute, but it will go on. So that'll screw on the end of there. On the other end, what I've done is I've just very quickly welded a bolt, and I'm now going to grind this down to not quite a point, but like a tip on the end. Okay, so you can see it's starting to come together now. The bolt's been ground down to a sort of a point. I've just put these 2 tiles there just to space it right, so that if you look at it from this angle, you'll see that they're just about halfway up. It's hard to see with the camera, but they're just about halfway up. So what I'll do now is, because this is not a structural part, I don't need to do too much welding. I'm going to tack it at the top and at the bottom on both sides, and then I'll obviously put the 3rd and 4th one on over that. Okay, so there it is. That's the bit that's going to be sitting right at the top of the wheel. And now onto this now, as you can see, I've welded it at the top and at the bottom, and I've just quickly linished it just to get rid of any sort of sharp bits or lumps and bumps. Now basically the letters north, south, east and west are going to attach to this, so I'll do that now. So there you have it, there's the pole up. So just to quickly explain what I've got my little friend here that's not letting me get on with my jobs. Aren't you, Dorothy? Really?
And stuff like that will be a deterrent, so the slugs will turn around and go, oh, I'm not going on that, and it'll go off. What you can do to make that easier is if you
James are up the garden. Oh, James are up the garden.
Emptied 2 times in the last week, and as you can see, it's filled to the top again.
So I hope this edition of Jim's Allotment Garden has been of some use to you. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for all the comments. I'm sorry if I didn't mention you earlier on in the comments section. If I went through everybody that's been sending me comments recently, I'd be here for half an hour, so that's all I'll be doing. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who sent comments on the channel. I really do appreciate your feedback, and thank you to everybody that's been subscribing. Again, I really, I'm really grateful for the support for this channel. So thank you very much, and I will see you again on the next edition of Jim's Allotment Garden.